Yeah, let's do it.
Sanders patiently running. Sanders good cut. And another block. Sanders still going inside the 40.
NFC East champs, divisional champs, NFC champs, and world champs.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kelly Green Hour on this Friday afternoon. And as we approach Week 18 in the National Football League, where your Philadelphia Eagles are still one win away, or if they lose, a lot of help away from clinching the number one seed in the NFC East, something we thought would have been done a couple of weeks ago. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Now, this week, we didn't do our typical Tuesday show. We didn't feel that it would have been appropriate after the events that took place in Cincinnati on Monday night with Damar Hamlin. I don't know how Connor feels, but as somebody who played football in high school, covered football in college, played semi-pro football, I don't know Hamlin personally. I don't know any professional athletes personally, but that could have been me playing outside, playing on a Saturday. It looked like your normal tackle. Going after when Hamlin was going after T. Higgins, just got hit in a 1 in 1 million chance. Let's be real, the way where Hamlin got hit that caused the cardiac arrest. And as a show, we did not feel that it would have been appropriate. I don't know how we would have been able to come on that Tuesday evening and talk about the Eagles Saints. It just wouldn't have felt right. We are pleased with all the positive reports coming out of the University of Cincinnati Hospital. The tube is out of Damar Hamlin. He's talking to his family. He had a FaceTime with the team. So things are definitely progressing in the right way. And, just in the mentality in which football players have, the first question when he woke up was, did we win? And you got to love the answer the doctors gave. Yeah, you won. You won the game of life. So, everything that went down, Monday night, Connor, it just didn't feel right coming on here and talking football. It wasn't the right time. And I'm glad we were able to take a couple of days away. And, whatever respect that we were given towards Hamlin and the Buffalo Bills, I'm glad we were able to do that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We both talked that next morning and we said everybody's minds are going to be elsewhere. There's no need to talk about football right now. There's just, and out of respect for the entire situation, we are also not going to do our usual player of the week. Because the week never completed, and with respect to that, we just don't feel it fair to do that either. We're just going to talk Eagles, and I agree. I'm happy with all the great news that has come out. It has opened up a ton of different conversation about how the NFL should handle things going forward, how the NFL should handle contracts. I just listened to a very interesting conversation about the concept of fully guaranteeing contracts. That could be a discussion that comes up, and I think they're probably 4 years away now because they just got a fresh new deal done, but they may be 4 years away, but these are things that are not going to be forgotten anytime soon and will be remembered when the time rolls around between the Players Association and the league to renegotiate and re-up everything that's going on. So it's opened up a lot of different discussions, and both for positive and negative reasons. But the great thing is Damar Hamlin is still with us. Hopefully he continues to stay that way, gets on the mend. And this isn't one of those situations where you say you want to see him back on a football field, but this is one of the situations where you want to see him be a part of that organization. I mean, it's huge. Look at his charity. That's such a happy thing that came out of it. The charity for raising money for kids toys at Christmas with a goal of 2,500, now has $7 million in it. His story is going to be inspirational, and he should be a part of the NFL, if not the Buffalo Bills organization, for a very long time. So we are happy and excited for all this great news.
And a lot of credit out to the doctor that performed CPR, realized what was going on right away. And he was, they performed CPR on Hamlin on the field for 9 minutes. So and credit also goes to Zach Taylor and Sean McDermott, because McDermott's first thing he says, I should be at the hospital. I can't coach this game. And it's true. And, I don't know what reports are true. I mean, Joe Buck said, the players were told they're going to be given 5 minutes to get ready to go back and play the game, but we don't know what's true and what not. Troy Vincent said that was never said, but obviously, somebody's saying something, somebody else is saying another thing. But just, all the stuff that you've been put, like for the doctors that they've trained for, they studied for, had to be put to display right away, and they didn't fail. And that's the reason why Hamlin is alive now, is going to be able to live his life, presumably going forward, which is good. I mean, and if you think about it, there's other stories at the Eagles Saints game. A doctor who was in the Mummers Parade was at the game and saved somebody's life who in the stands. Now that hasn't gotten as much notoriety because it's not a professional athlete, but Darius Slay's wife reached out to the person and is having the doctor and the nurse that helped go to the game this Sunday with her because of their generous. That's we say here and say it can be a random act of kindness. It's just being a human being. You see somebody that's hunched over, somebody that's turning blue, and you're going to go and do what you can to help them. And fortunately for this person that was passed out, or this person that wasn't in the right mind, wasn't in the right, I don't want to say right mindset, it doesn't sound right, but just wasn't healthy at the time. Like, there was a doctor, there was a nurse there sitting in their section, and was able to help them out. Peyton Hillis is in ICU right now. He saved his kids on I think it was like on a beach or on a boat, something like that. So yeah. It's not just Damar Hamlin, and obviously we know his story because it was front and center, nationally televised game, Monday Night Football, but it happens all the time. So all these people that go out there and give it their all and do what they've been trained, and don't do it for notoriety and whatnot, they deserve all the credit in the world as well.
Absolutely. I mean, for the big thing that mostly all you see is criticism of fans and videos of fighting and yelling in the stands, there is probably some of those events or moments happening in the stands almost every game, outside of the stadiums almost every game, every day. These situations, or where someone has to jump into action who may not be in the moment, have to be involved in that action, do heroic things, do things noteworthy and story-worthy things. So of course, we are happy that everything has come to fruition, and all the great stories that have come of it, and everything, and all the great discussion that's going to come of it. It's all 100% positive. But now I feel like, we have another job to do right now, and it's not as fun.
Talking about the Eagles Saints game, I guess we can talk about that. But before we continue, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHurrell54. Follow the Painted Lines on Twitter and YouTube at the Painted Lines, and follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Edge of Philly Sports or EOP Sports. And if you're joining us live, and we know it's earlier than normal, let us know your thoughts on the Eagles Saints game, the upcoming Eagles Giants game, the Damar Hamlin situation, everything that went down. Let us know your thoughts and how everything has gone down all week. And like I said, we're at a positive because Hamlin is alive. Hamlin is talking. Hamlin FaceTime teammates. So that helps the Bills out as well. And obviously we know that it's going to be the first time since I think 1935 that all the teams in the league have played the same amount of games, because they're ruling the Bills Bengals game as a no contest. So that could throw things out of whack in the AFC in terms of seeding and whatnot, and the potential of the AFC Championship game being played at a neutral site, which I don't know if that's ever happened before. But yeah, so that Eagles Saints game. So I think a lot of flack is being thrown at the defense because of the first drive. Because every week it seems like Gannon gets really soft, plays a soft zone, allows the opposing offense to go down the field like a hot knife through butter and score right away. And look, the defense did not play bad. After that first drive, the defense was really good. But everybody sees what happens right away, sees what happens first, and they're like, what the hell? So I think that is why Gannon and look, after that first drive, after that first quarter, I even put in our group chat, I said, that Gannon's going to be the reason why the Eagles don't go to the Super Bowl. And did I expect the Eagles offense to not do anything? No, I mean, especially after what they did against Dallas, I thought they'd be able to put points against the Saints. Dallas is supposed to be a better defense than Saints. So if Minshew didn't get touched by Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and that defensive line by Dallas, what makes you think the Saints defensive line is going to be able to get to him? And they got to him, 7 times? So Jalen Hurts is coming back at the right time. I don't know if he's 100%, but they need him back. They need that spark. And after all the talk, you could hear A.J. Brown. He didn't come here to play with Gardner Minshew. He came here to play with Jalen Hurts. And he is excited. And I think that Jalen Hurts is definitely going to provide a boost to the offense this week.
Oh, it goes without saying, even in the Cowboys game, and I get it, people are going to point the finger at Quez Watkins and stuff. That offense put up 34, and it could have easily been close to 50 points. There's definitely some circumstances that came up in that game that were not great. And we're also on the fact that, yes, was Quez Watkins a little soft on those 2 interceptions? Yes. Would Jalen Hurts have put Quez Watkins in that situation? Highly doubtful. Gardner Minshew, he showed it last week too. He's willing to throw into some tight windows. He can make the play sometimes, but he makes a play a lot less than any other quarterback. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of people saying Minshew lost his starting job, or chance at a starting job. I don't think he was going to go and get a starting job. I think he's a better backup quarterback, but it's proven why he's a backup quarterback and why he is a better backup quarterback. And to Chris Sims, who's now all butthurt about the comment that he made, and he thinks people are making too much of it, just don't make the damn comments then. Yeah. Plain and simple. And you kind of knew, we knew it going in. One of the biggest things working against the Eagles with Minshew was it took away a major advantage, a major dimension to their team, which was Jalen Hurts and his legs. And we can tell whether it be Shane Steichen's play calling that's a problem, or whether it be the fact that teams are stacking the box more, or are more open to bringing more men down the field a bit. It's really difficult to tell what it is, but they're not using Miles Sanders the same. Miles Sanders is equally effective in the limited touches, but it's starting to feel a lot like maybe it's Jalen Hurts not being there. Shane Steichen's a little more afraid to run the football, or he thinks that dimension isn't going to work as well. But honestly, Miles Sanders, he went 12 carries for 61 yards. He was over 5 yards per carry. Like, he's been extremely effective. And the concept that they're not willing to hand the ball off, it's kind of blows my mind, because the Saints are actually not a very good run defense. The Saints and the Cowboys, we talked about it on the preview show, they were side by side, I think 20 and 21 or something, like right in the middle of the pack, giving up 130-ish yards per game on the ground. And then you go and Miles Sanders puts up 61, but with 8 more carries, he's a 100-yard rusher, maybe even more, because with 8 more carries, he's bound to bust off one of those patented 20, 25-yard runs that he pulls out of his pocket, or a couple of them every game. So we knew this going into these 2 games, that one of the biggest advantages we lost was the ability to have the run, to have the pass, and to have the option, whether that option be a handoff or whether that option be Jalen Hurts being able to run the football. And it goes to show, I think that speaks volumes. I also think that Shane Steichen's play calling was the past couple weeks have me very nervous. I get Jalen Hurts is coming back, and hopefully that'll reopen the entire playbook and everything.
He wasn't good,
but that's Chicago. Scary.
The play calling wasn't good in Chicago. The coaching staff has regressed over the last couple of weeks.
Except for Jonathan Gannon. I don't feel prepared to point that, and when you look at it,
but we haven't.
The Saints scored. The Saints scored 20 points, but guess what? The defense is responsible for 13.
We faced a decent quarterback against Dallas, and he went zone a lot, and he was 24, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. He doesn't. I'm scared when it comes to Gannon. When we face a competent quarterback, that's what worries me. You're going to be facing potentially Brady, Dak Prescott again, maybe Aaron Rodgers. I'm not scared of Kirk Cousins as much, but you're going to be facing a legit quarterback, and that's where. And again, Jonathan Gannon calls his defense scared when he faces a really good quarterback. So while the defense last week looked good, Andy Dalton stinks, but Andy Dalton was still really good against the zone. So I still don't get it. Now, I do have a question for you. The pick 6 that Gardner Minshew threw, is that on Minshew or is that on A.J. Brown? Because there's been talk, and especially in our group chats, about, maybe it was on A.J. Brown because he didn't give his full effort, but then also A.J. Brown was trying to get Gardner Minshew's attention, and Minshew didn't look at him. Whose fault?
I
do you
don't think
that was?
I don't agree. I think there's like a 50-50 blame on it. I don't think it's one way or the other as much as people want to point the finger. I don't think AJ Brown was ready for the pass necessarily. If you
He
give
wasn't
him
expecting it. He said he
if-
wasn't expecting it.
no, and if you give him one more second, he's in the middle of running a slant route that I guarantee there's going to be a window of opportunity to throw that ball. But he doesn't give it that extra second. He does that. Anticipation is definitely something that hurts with Gardner Minshew. Jalen Hurts, his anticipation isn't always great either, but his anticipation is leaps and bounds ahead of Gardner Minshew because he can anticipate where somebody's going to be and tries to throw to that spot. And this was one where it's almost like he expected AJ Brown to just kind of curl in and stop. But it was a play that the ball needed to be more out in front of him, and the ball wasn't really out in front of him. Less blame goes to AJ Brown than on the Quez Watkins ones of the week prior. Like those look like Quez being Quez and not being able to be tough on the play. AJ Brown seems like a miscommunication, a bad anticipation, but I don't really put anything. I don't really put anything on AJ Brown giving up. I don't see where he gave up on the play. I just think it was a bad miscommunication and a very bad decision making and anticipation on Minshew's part. So if I were to put more blame, it would probably be 75-25 in favor of Gardner Minshew.
And if you look at Marshawn Lattimore, he didn't look at AJ Brown once on that play. His eyes were on Minshew the entire time from snap to throw. He knew what was coming. You got to realize the coverage. While they did call that play earlier in the game, the coverage wasn't the same. Lattimore was off a little bit more. This one, he was right in AJ Brown, like right up on AJ Brown. So I do agree. I think it's on Minshew. It's also on Steichen. Like you have to. Steichen needs to be better with calling plays. And like going into this week's game, yes, you're gonna have Jalen Hurts back. We don't know. He's probably not 100%, but he's got to be 80, 85, 90%.
And then 80% Hurts is better than 100%
Minshew.
I'm sorry.
You're also probably, and if you look at the line, the Eagles are favored by 14. You're not going up against Kayvon Thibodeau, Ojulari, Xavier McKinney. You're not going up against the starters for the Giants. So I don't want to be given this false sense of security, false sense of hope this week. If we blow the Giants out, which I'll be happy, I'll be at the game. Like let's have fireworks going. Let's put up 50 points. But if you remember last year's season ender against Dallas, where we played our COVID team, Dallas went up, Dak threw for 5 touchdowns, and they were like all celebrating. And what did they do the next week? They lost to San Francisco. That's my fear going into this week's game, that the Eagles are going to come out. Jalen's going to look like the MVP candidate. They're going to throw up 35, 40, 50 points on the Giants who aren't playing anybody. And then they're going to have the week off. They're going to be thinking all high and mighty of themselves and then go into that the divisional game and then not show up. That's my worry going into this week's game against the Giants team that has nothing to play for. They're the 6th seed. They can't go to 7. They can't go up to 5. They are the 6th seed. They know where they're going to be. It's just a matter of where they're traveling next week, which in theory it potentially no, never mind. It can be Eagles are going to be the 1, 2, or the 5. I was going to say it could be Philly again, but it won't be. So that's my worry going into this week's game, and it's not going to, even if the Eagles win this week, the next 2 weeks as we're getting ready for the divisional round, it's not going to be all hunky gory. I'm thrilled at where we're at now. It's going to be, what team are we getting come the weekend of January 22nd?
Yeah, this team that we were infatuated with at 13-1, and the national media was all over. They were number 1 in most power rankings, unless you're at ESPN, where Dallas has always been ahead of us for some reason that we can't understand. But most places we were 1, or we were 2, or we were 3, and the only reason we weren't in the other ones is that we weren't number 1 is because there's Patty Mahomes or Josh Allen. So we were always like right up there. And then suddenly that consistent play, that really incredible play that we saw that led us to 13-1 has become extremely inconsistent in recent weeks. And so many people just want to point a finger at somebody. Like in the Dallas game, it was Quez Watkins. In the Saints game, we're pointing the finger at the offensive coordinator, at Shane Steichen, because Shane Steichen's not playing. Some people are pointing the finger at Jonathan Gannon's defense that allowed only 13 points. Like at this point, the consistency isn't there, and everybody's just looking to point a finger at somebody, and it's little plays. Earlier in the season where we were making the plays that in prior seasons we wouldn't make, or we were squeezing out those wins that we wouldn't get in prior seasons, we're back to that team. And whether that's with or without Jalen Hurts, things were looking a little more bumpy with Jalen Hurts after that first loss to Washington. Things started to get a little bumpier. He was still looking really good, but there was still, there was situations coming up, bad plays, interceptions, turnovers were a huge thing. We were starting to see that consistency went away, and we're starting to really look like the Philadelphia Eagles of old over the last, and it's not just the Minshew weeks. I would argue over the last 4 or 5 weeks, ever since the Washington loss, I feel like we just haven't been that same Eagles team that was undefeated up until that point, that we was up 10-0 up until that point. So that's my thing. Consistency has to come back, and that doesn't just mean in play calling. The consistency and confidence has to come back. I think consistency on the field, confidence off the field with the coordinators, because I think that Shane Steichen has lost confidence, or there's been a loss of confidence in their ability to call plays and in their ability to coach and game plan and adjust. Another big thing was adjust. Adjustments take too long to happen, and you're already behind 2 scores and you're behind the 8 ball trying to come back. And we don't want that either. So I think it's a twofold thing that needs to happen to get back to that Eagles team that was 10-0.
Yeah. And do you think the Eagles have peaked? Like, they were 10-0, they were 13-1. Then Jalen got hurt. Now Jalen getting hurt does change things, obviously, because he was playing at an MVP level. And then Maddox got hurt, and now Lane Johnson got hurt, even though Johnson said
Josh Sweat
got hurt last week. Like, all the stuff, they weren't turning the ball over early. They've been turning the ball over a lot lately. All the stuff that they were doing well early in the season, they're not doing well these last couple of weeks. Did they peak? Is the coaching staff just they're not getting to the players anymore? What do you think's happening?
I think they could have continued to be that team, and they can return to being that team. But like I said, that things need to change. Confidence in your play calling, confidence in your players to do what they're paid to go out there and do, and then consistency on the field, whether it be turning the ball over, making the big plays. Like, the big plays disappeared, which we anticipated with Gardner Minshew going in and stuff. And injuries happen in the NFL. The Eagles every year seem to be the ones who always get injured at the beginning and have to fight through injuries. Next man up approach this season, we're getting the injuries at the back end. But it still has to be, we've been the next man up approach in the past and been able to pull out wins. We were next man up. We were the underdogs the year we won the Super Bowl. There was just as many injuries on that roster, if not more. And we've seen seasons where we went through 13, 14 different offensive line combinations. We've been down this road before, and it just does. I don't know if it's that the coaching staff's not getting to them. I'm not in the building, but I don't think it's that the coaching staff isn't getting to them. I think a lot, especially the last 2 weeks where you start seeing people's comments and the way they're throwing people under the bus a little bit. Jalen Hurts is very important to that team locker room presence and ability to be on the football field. And I know that he was still in the locker room, but being in the locker room doesn't matter at the end of the day, because you need to be playing and be able to say, I take accountability for this, or this is what I saw in the play, which is not the conversation that we're getting from some of these guys. I think Jalen Hurts being back is going to change things big time. But I also think the plan has to remain twofold. Confidence from the coaching staff, consistency on the field has to start happening. And then the injuries, while they matter, won't matter as much.
And I think him being out the last 2 weeks has proved how valuable he is, regardless of what Chris Sims and Micah Parsons and all those people say. And he may have earned himself a couple $1 million because
that hurts Howie so bad, those 2 games, because now that's one of the things. If you're arguing I'm a $45 million and then Jalen's I think I'm a $50 million, he just proved he's probably the $50 million man, not the $45 million man.
All right, so let's jump into this game, which who would have thought maybe 5 weeks ago that the Eagles have to play for something and the Giants aren't playing for something? I think we thought that the Giants would probably be playing for a playoff berth. The Eagles would be resting because they've already clinched the East and the number 1 seed. But alas, here we are. This game means something. Even though I'm going to be there, I wish it wouldn't mean something. And I hate that it's a 4:25 game. I would have much rather a 1 o'clock game. So it still should be a fun time down at Lincoln Financial Field. It hasn't been announced yet, but we all anticipate Jalen starting. So Chauncey Gardner-Johnson probably playing. And that'll be huge, getting him back and getting his feet back under him so that his first action back isn't going to be in a playoff game. But they're also going to be going up against Tyrod Taylor, not Saquon Barkley, not Daniel Jones. I mean, their receivers are a bunch of bums anyway.
I was going to say they're not resting.
It doesn't
any
really
of those
matter.
guys.
Their offensive line's not that good anyway. The starters aren't that good, so that's not going to matter. So the Eagles, who are 5th in NFL history in sacks right now, are 5 away from setting, and I know it's an extra game, but 5 away from setting the NFL record, and they've had 5 straight games, I believe, with 6+ sacks. So the chances of that happening are probably pretty good this week, unless the Giants come out and run the ball every play. But, it does worry me that Tyrod Taylor can move around, and while he's not that good, I feel like, again, it wouldn't shock me if early in the game we see a soft zone, very passive defense by Gannon, and the Giants go right down the field, go up 7-0, and we're going to be sitting there holding our breath in a game that the Eagles should blow the Giants out.
Absolutely. And I think a positive for Brian Daboll is Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor are very similar from a play style, I find. So he doesn't really have to change the playbook very much.
He can go out there. I think Taylor's more accurate than
I think Taylor's more accurate too, which is all the more reason to be a little more concerned about it, because you can't take your foot off the gas. This is one of those games where you got to go in hot and you got to stay that way the entire game. Like you said, are all the starters going to be rested? No, but I anticipate, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, probably, if they play, they might play a quarter. I don't foresee very much. You're talking, you said the offensive line isn't great, but I could see Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal, the tackles, coming out just for the safety sake of we need those guys to have any chance in the playoffs. Obviously, the tight end's going to be out there. Bellinger will be out there. The wide receivers will be out there. Saquon won't be there. Xavier McKinney, Julian Love probably won't be there. Like, I can see 6 or 7 key guys, but we're not talking a complete backup squad here. There are going to be a fair amount of starters, I think, out there. And I think that that's why you cannot take this team for granted at all, because this is a team that has somehow been able to squeeze out. The Giants are who I thought the Commanders would be, to be honest. I thought the Commanders were a couple pieces away, but they could really get there. They showed that they're still a quarterback away and still likely a couple other pieces elsewhere away. But the Giants literally have almost nothing beyond Saquon Barkley and a pretty solid defensive line and a couple good safeties. They have almost nothing everywhere else, a bunch of scrubs everywhere else on that roster, and they're way ahead. Like, they're a good offseason build away from competing. I hate to say it, because we, usually what we generally like is, one team moves up, one team moves down. But I still think the NFC East could be kind of an NFC beast next season, especially if Washington figures it out and the Giants figure it out.
Well, if the Giants if the Giants re-sign Jones, then they still have their shot. Jones stinks. I don't care what people say.
Jones definitely stinks, but I mean, he's proven enough to be a bridge quarter. Like, he's not a guy who's going to command $30-40 million. I think you're in a spot where you can get him locked in for 3 years at something like, I don't know, $66 million or something. Keep him around maybe 2 years, maybe 1 year, maybe the franchise. I don't even know what they would end up doing with Daniel Jones, but I think they're going to want to see one more year out of him and see what they can put around him. And if it doesn't work, then they're going to be one of those teams out there looking for a bridge quarterback again, like we're seeing a lot of teams do. But I mean, it's still not a team to scoff at and just say, oh, we're gonna easily put up 4 or 5 scores. We do have to remember Jalen Hurts is a couple weeks removed. How good is his shoulder? And 80% Jalen Hurts is probably not putting up 50, but probably take away 20% of the points there, or take away a couple scores. Like, we may not get that type of scoring power. But I mean, this should definitely be like a run game. This feels like a game where if Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau come out early and they're going to the backups and they're going to lean on them, it feels like a good time to, get that running game going, get that running attack going again, showing that it hasn't completely disappeared. Because like you said, LJ, while running has never really won anyone the Super Bowl, you kind of need a good balance between pass and run. And over the past 2 to 3 weeks, we've been a lot more on the pass and completely not even using a running back who's likely not going to be back on roster next year. Run that man into the ground. There's no reason that he's not seeing 15 to 20 carries weekly.
Especially with the backup quarterback. And we shouldn't be running Jalen Hurts 17 times like you did in the Chicago game. And you could see it last week. And you had mentioned earlier how Hurts could have made a big difference in the game plan or in the game against the Saints. But the Saints defensive ends did not respect Gardner Minshew keeping the ball. They knew he wasn't going to keep it. That if you're running the RPO, they knew it was just a run. And if you looked at any of the replays, you saw the defensive end crashing down wide open on that side. If Gardner Minshew would have kept it, he could have made 5 yards, 6 yards a carry, and that could have helped the offense. But you're right. Like, there was no reason for Miles Sanders to only have 12 carries last week. And I think that was a season low, maybe. If I'm not mistaken, he may have had a couple of games where it was a little lower, but still 12 carries and he averaged over 5 yards a carry like that. That's inexcusable by this offensive coaching staff. It could get to a point in the game, and as an Eagles fan, you hope like the Eagles get up by 3-4 scores, and they take Jalen out, because obviously you don't want you're going up against a bunch of backup players that are trying to prove that they deserve. And I think you mentioned this last week. They're going up. They could be going up against a bunch of backup players that deserve, or that want to show they deserve some playing time in the playoffs. And if they can get a shot on Jalen Hurts, it wouldn't shock me if they tried to get a shot on Jalen Hurts. And that would ruin our chances going forward into the playoffs. This isn't 2017. I don't think Minshew can do what Foles did, the Foles magic. I don't know if we will have Minshew magic, but Jalen Hurts has to be on the field for the Eagles to have any shot of winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And also, you're looking at a bunch of backups play, and this is something even Minshew should be able to accomplish something in, because we talked about, New Orleans and Dallas defenses aren't that great. New Orleans is 9th in yards allowed, and Dallas is 13th in yards allowed. The New York Giants are 24th in yards allowed. They allow nearly 360 yards per game. This is something even Minshew should be able to conquer, but we're forced to turn over to Jalen Hurts because Minshew hasn't been able to conquer much. And I agree with you. I think they threw the ball way too much, and they saw the weaknesses in Gardner Minshew's game, which made them more confident in, maybe loading the box up, bringing an extra guy down, just letting the defensive line pin their ears back and say, go and get them. We know they're not going to run the ball much. It completely shifts things. Even if the running game isn't going well, look back to the Washington Commanders game where we say, okay, the Washington Commanders ran for 3 yards per carry, but they dominated the time of possession. They ran the ball. What was it, 40 something times? It was crazy. They ran the ball a ton. It wasn't effective, but it was enough to put them in manageable situations, and it was enough to put them in a situation to win the football game. And Shane Steichen hasn't leveraged that running game at all. Even if you look at last week, Boston Scott carried the ball twice. Minshew once. We ran the ball 15 times and made Minshew throw the ball 42 times. Well, why would a defense respect your run game? Why would a defense respect your backup quarterback? It is 100%. It's almost as disastrous as the game plan that was called against Chicago. But for the flip side.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they do on the offensive side. Obviously, we don't expect Jalen to run as much, but I said it before. Josh Allen, after he had that elbow injury, it was, dude, don't get hurt. And just when you play and your mindset has always been one way out on the football field, it's tough to take that away. So Jalen is going to have to be protected from Jalen. So, and it's not like the offensive line was bad. Yeah, they gave up the Saints had 6 sacks last week, but a lot of that was Gardner Minshew holding on to the football or stepping into sacks. Jack Driscoll obviously wasn't Lane Johnson, who's the best right tackle or best tackle in football, but he was still serviceable. Cameron, I think was it Ellis? It was somebody's the first sack of the game. Miles Sanders whiffed on the line on the end. They're linebackers, so you just have to have better play. You can't be whiffing on plays like that. And let them. This is a better run blocking offensive line than it is a pass blocking offensive line. So while they're going to be out there, let them go out there and do what they do best, and that's ram it right down the throats of the opposing team. And the fact that the Eagles couldn't get the 4th and inches on a QB sneak with Minshew, that's all I needed to see. Because again, what does Kelsey say? 92% of the time it works all the time, and with Jalen it seems to work most of the time. They failed twice against Green Bay, and that may have been it. Well, the fact that they failed that last week was ridiculous. And it's definitely not the same when Minshew's out there compared to when Hurts is out there.
No, definitely not. The offense looks completely different, and I mean, like you said, Jack Driscoll, he wasn't great, but he was serviceable. But that is also Minshew needs to understand he doesn't have the best right tackle in football
Well,
anymore.
the coaching staff needs to understand that too. They didn't give him any help.
They didn't give him any help, which was I think that was one of my things that I said on the Tuesday night show or the Friday night show where we were previewing the game. I said, if you don't give Jack Driscoll help over there, it's going to be a long night. And it ended up being a long night off that right side because they didn't give any help. They didn't use any chip in, anything. Even a chip can buy you that half a second or that second that he can find the window to throw the football. This isn't a guy like, this wasn't an offense built to get the ball out quick for Minshew. This also is not an offensive line that can withstand a guy like I saw Shane's post. Like there was times where he stood in the pocket for 4, 5, and 6 seconds before taking the sack. Like that is insane. Or before vacating the pocket. Like that is insane. You should never be if you're holding the ball for 6 seconds. Well, watching some tape on Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, those guys have that type of time because their offensive lines are absolute studs. You got a backup right tackle out there. Like you're in a situation, you got a left side of the line that has been good, but not great in recent weeks. Like you can't be leaning, you can't sit back there for 6 seconds and not have found anything, or the opportunity to throw the football away. Like just having the awareness to throw the football away. Again, the awareness and anticipation, not there with Gardner Minshew at all, where it's something we became more accustomed to with Jalen Hurts and how he's been playing recently. But it was frustrating the past 2 weeks, past 3 weeks, I guess you could argue, because of the Chicago Bears game. It's been frustrating because Shane Steichen's play calling has regressed. I think if you're looking at him if you looked at him as a top head coaching candidate, I'm probably sitting there saying, I got to see what he does in the playoffs now, because the last 3 weeks have made me think if I was evaluating him, I'd leave him another year. This is one of those offensive coordinators who, okay, interview him, see what he says, but it almost feels like the Kansas City Chiefs guy, whatever's why he isn't getting hired. I can't even understand it. But at the end of the day, like it's those types of situations, these situations where say this week doesn't go well, we go into the playoffs, we're out in the first round, or we lose the opportunity for a bye after pretty much owning the opportunity. All we needed was one of 3 games. Then you got to look at Shane Steichen and say, I don't know if he's the guy anymore. And I'm struggling right now with it because, the play calling's been bad. The consistency on the field's been bad. But, I mean, I feel like the play calling's been worse than the consistency of play.
Would Sirianni need to be questioned, too, if they lose this week and lose out on the first round bye? Like, that's like on Sirianni as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Sirianni would have to take some accountability to it, but it depends. Like if Shane Steichen's calling 100% of the plays, but if you get to that point, I think the discussion has to be had: is it time maybe that you give up the play calling, or was he a byproduct of Jalen Hurts? Is Shane Steichen's really well-functioning offense a byproduct of having to have a mobile Jalen Hurts or a mobile quarterback? Because then you have to rethink how you would bring him in as a coach altogether, because you'd have to be like, well, now we need to look at like a Will Levis or an Anthony Richardson or somebody who gives him a really mobile quarterback or a guy who's going to move around, because that's the only way the offense succeeds. It's so difficult to tell what's going on there. And at the end of the day, I mean, I don't necessarily believe Gannon and Shane Steichen should be at the top of head coaching lists anymore at this point, as much as everybody wants Gannon gone, which is fine. And he was going to probably interview incredibly well. The consistency just hasn't been there in recent weeks, and I think they have a lot to prove in the playoffs to become coaches. But obviously, this isn't all about the coaches. But
all right, so we know that the Giants probably aren't going to play any of their heavy hitters. The Eagles are going to be starting Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Miles Sanders. The offensive line minus Lane Johnson. What are your expectations? What are you looking for in this game? To take something, it's going to be tough to take something positive if you're beating a bunch of backups. We're not Dallas fans. Like they all got happy, they were all hunky-dory over beating the Eagles last year, week 18, with Dak's 5 touchdown passes, knowing we played a COVID team. Like, so what would make you happy? What would make you say this is positive going into the playoffs?
I think getting this offense back on track is a positive for me. If you go out there and you end up in a 21-17 game and that's all you can end up mustering, I'm concerned. I'm really nervous. But if we can go out there, and I get it, it's scrubs. So we've seen them play earlier in the year where they were able to put up 30, 40, nearly 50 points. You go out there against these scrubs and you score anything less than like 35. Unless you get up 3 scores, Minshew comes in, and then it's the most boring second half of life, and it stays a 3-score game and nobody ever scores again. Okay, that's fine. I'm fine with that. It's situational. But if we're not out there scoring at least 30 points, that would be a disappointment. I'm not so worried about the defense. Maybe Gannon will give me reason to worry about the defense, but Gannon gives me pause, not worry. Every game he gives me reason to pause, question him, and then the defense seems to fall back in line a little bit as the game goes on. But we need to see things moving forward for this offense and getting back to the offense that led us to 10-0, that led us to 13-1, that led us to this opportunity that all we need is one damn game. And here we are 3 weeks later needing that one damn game still.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see some consistency, not turning the football over, and actually forcing turnovers. Again, the first 10 games of the year, they were number 1 in the league. And I think the last 6 games they've been last in the league when it comes to just being able to turn the ball over, or with their
they're losing the turnover battle and the time
battle.
of possession battle a lot, and that is the script was perfect. Like, teams are playing into the script that we said before, and people were like, the blueprint's not really there. I don't know, ever since that Colts game, it feels like a lot of teams are coming in there with an idea of a blueprint, or even the Washington game. Yeah, like, it feels like teams are coming in there with an idea of, at least if it's not a blueprint, it's certainly a way to beat this team or a way to control this team. It's not necessarily the turnover battle. We need to win time of possession. You have to. All our losses have come when we've lost the time of possession battle, and usually it was a pretty significant loss.
And we were on a historic rate of scoring in the second quarter and just haven't been able to the last couple of weeks either. So hopefully they figure it out, straighten it out going into the playoffs. It would really be a bum if we were sitting here talking about we should have gotten a first round bye and we have to go to Tampa next week. And after last year, like, I don't know, I don't want that. And Brady.
Tampa's getting healthier. Like, Vita Vea's supposed to be back, and then you got the tackle that they were missing coming back. Like,
Jansen center might be back. So
yeah, this is a bad time to play them, because even though they haven't been great this year, you get 2-3 of those bodies back of the 15 they've been missing this season. Yeah. Like, they can easily do similar to last year to us.
Yeah. So hopefully they win, and obviously I want a good game, being as I'll be there. So we'll see what happens. All right. So what's your prediction for the game?
I predict we're gonna do. I think we're gonna get this first round bye, and we're gonna dominate, because I think Jalen Hurts is gonna come out there. This team plays for him. This team loves him. I'm starting to think maybe Sirianni laid the culture or the framework for it, and Jalen Hurts was the guy, because it feels like this team and this offense plays and runs way better when Jalen Hurts is out there. And yes, you build the playbook for it and stuff, but it just feels like, even when you see them interacting on the field and talking and the interviews post game, it just feels so much better when it's Jalen Hurts at quarterback versus Gardner Minshew. I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to get that, like, 35 to, I'm going to give them 17. 35-17 for the Eagles. I think the fourth quarter, Jalen Hurts will be able to come out. I'm hoping by the start of the second half that all the starters can come off. We have a nice 3-score cushion, and we can just put it on cruise control. And sadly, LJ, expect a boring second half. I hope. But if it's a really good first half, then
we're popping bottles, and hopefully we're popping bottles in the second half, and just it's gonna be a coronation for the NFC East champions. I'm going to say 31-14. And Hurts will be able to come out late third, early fourth, and it'll be a coronation. In the fourth quarter, a bunch of celebrating as the Eagles will clinch the NFC East, the number 1 seed, and we'll get ready for the divisional round in 2 weeks. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. I mean, it's tough to be positive right now after what we've seen the last couple of weeks. with the way the coaching staff is. And again, it's going to be a different quarterback too. So like we're not going to be sitting here. We're not going to sit here and say, oh, we got to watch Gardner Minshew in the playoffs. I don't want that. And again, you're going up against a bunch of backups that are out to prove they deserve some playing time. So that worries me a little bit in terms of going after some of our players, cheap shots, or just playing, we always say play to the whistle, but we know like not everybody plays to the whistle, but some of these guys for the Giants might, and that could put some of our guys in harm. But we'll see. We'll see if Devontae Smith can get, 71 yards away from 1,200.
And then
like
AJ Brown's 9 yards from setting a franchise record. Yes, I get it. It's 17 games, but this is a new standard, so we can't just keep bringing it up. You can put the asterisks there if you want, but at the end of the day, the accomplishments this team's had this year, it would be so degrading to end up not getting the first round bye, to not win the division. It would be such a degrading thing to just see. Like every single week, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles Twitter, go back through franchise record, NFL record, franchise record, career highs. Like it's been such a special team and such a special year that over the last 3 to 5 weeks feels like it's been derailed, and it's been frustrating. So hopefully we get it back on the rails. We have a good game this week. Get that first week by, and just fingers crossed. I don't want to say shit about the playoffs right now. I don't want to jinx nothing.
I know. And we'll see if the Eagles can break the NFL record in sacks in the season. They're 5 away from tying, 6 away from one of them. It's either 5 from
I think it's 5 from tying and 6 from taking.
Okay. And again, they've had 6 plus sacks in 5 straight games. All right, thank you everybody for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour here. Oh, and Connor, we're blaming you for last week because what didn't you do at the end? You better do it this time. So yeah, thank you for tuning into our early edition of the Kelly Green Hour. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. If I remember, I'll post some pictures from the game this Sunday against the Giants. But for Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
You want Philly?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sanders patiently running. Sanders good cut and another block. Sanders still going inside the 40.